Oh yeah, that was a very short, like teeny tiny little cutscene as the reward for finishing it. You can definitely tell they sort of ran out of budget and development time near the end of the game. Whoa, what happened? How did I teleport forward? Definitely a mixed bag. Game's got potential to be one of the best Sonic games ever, but some of the design choices and the fact that it can't hold a steady frame rate during that last boss on the Switch really holds it back. It's got a lot of great stuff going for it though. I like the special stages. I like the early stages. I love the character specific stages. Those are so well designed because they're designed around a specific character's kit. Sonic, it feels like hard mode in his own game. Shouldn't exactly be the case. The game, if you're going to design it around any one character, it should be designed around Sonic's kit and then create extras that the other characters can engage with based on their movement abilities, like Amy's double jump, Tails flight, Knuckles gliding and climbing, like it was in Sonic 3. You know, they had their Tails and Knuckles had their own unique paths they could take, but the game was still designed first and foremost around Sonic's mobility. They kinda messed up in that aspect in this game. In some of the levels. Some of the levels playing Sonic felt like it was harder than it needed to be, simply because they didn't account for his limited vertical mobility. And the drop dash felt mostly useless, except for turning your mobility around, turning your movement around, because literally going back and forth, coming to a stop from, say, walking to the right and then going left to narrowly dodge something, it almost never worked for me because of how slow his starting speed is. It's definitely slower than the Genesis games, that's for sure. Like his walking speed. So the first set of stages, like the first half of them, excellent. It was when you get towards the latter half of the game where it starts to show the flaws, where the flaws start to show through. And you don't want a game's flaws to shine through in the late game. I mean, yeah, you want to put your best foot forward. You want to, I don't know, you want to maintain a certain level of quality throughout the whole game, like Sonic Mania did. Both this game and Sonic Frontiers seem to suffer from a development time shortage. You could tell they started running out of time and budget near the end of those games, both games. And it definitely doesn't make the product better when it comes to games. You want to properly allocate your budget and time across the whole game evenly so that you have a consistent level of quality throughout. If you can manage that, then you can have games like Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Sonic 2, two of the greatest in the series to this day. And Sonic Mania, honestly. Sonic Mania didn't get any worse towards the end of the game. I would venture to say it kept very consistent throughout the whole thing. And then even then, the true final boss was so fun. So they managed to keep that level of fun throughout the entire thing. So it's doable. It's extremely doable. Problem is, in recent years, the people who have done it the best have not been Sega's first-party Sonic team. It's been fans who were hired to make an official Sonic game. At this point, the fans kind of do it better than Sega. And it's a little sad. Not to say that they're all bad, though. Almost every Sonic game has its really fun points and its redeeming qualities. Some people tried to say that this game was bloated with mechanics, had too much happening. I kind of thought it kept the levels fresh. It was during the later levels where I started to see where they're coming from, because they started to result in cheap deaths. Deaths that didn't feel earned by my own mistakes, but rather just intended to punish the player. Not great, so I can kind of see where they're coming from now. And again, my biggest critique is that the game couldn't hold a steady frame rate during the last boss on the Switch. A game with this graphical style should not have that issue. Sonic Mania had no issues on the Switch. I know because my brother plays it on Switch, or played it on Switch. There was no such issues. So there's really no excuse for that. Even if the Switch is, you know, notably weaker than all the other console hardware, that a game like this shouldn't have that kind of hitching frame rate that eats your inputs. And if at the very least the game had like an input buffer that could have allowed you to keep your timing on your jumps, even if the visuals hitched up a bit, I could totally give that a pass. But that wasn't the case this time, so yeah, that one's a little bit unforgivable. It caused that last boss to take way longer for me than it should have because of taking hits and dying for no fault of my own. And I'm not usually the kind to blame games for my mistakes. I know when it was my mistake and when it wasn't. I played enough games in my life to know that this was not my own mistakes. This was literally the game, in one case, not telling me what to do at a certain point of the boss fight, and then eating my inputs during frame rate hiccups. During a part where you had to have a precise jump. Not great. Not great at all. Objectively speaking. A game with some real potential, some great ideas, surprisingly fun online multiplayer, I will say. Just marred by its late game decision choices and level design decisions, you know, enemy placements, hazards, stuff like that. It really lacked the polish of the first half of the game. And then poor performance on the Switch, which is the only console I really play anything on anymore. And then everything else I play on PC. But I wanted to be able to play this game in handheld after I completed the campaign on stream, because the multiplayer is fun and there's a lot of extras that I could do. Or, you know, just replayability, right? Because you can play the different characters on the different stages, and there's a decent amount of collectibles like the fruits that give you a special stage each and stuff. So there's reason to replay stages with different characters. You get a lot of reward out of it, right? Handheld mode is the only way I was gonna get that much out of a game like this. I mean, heck, handheld mode is the reason why I've even played games like Monster Hunter Rise and Warframe as much as I have. I need to be able to play away from my desk for most game genres, or at least single player games. Games with heavy single player content. I just don't have the time to always sit down at my desk to play something. Sometimes it's a long day after work and I need to sit down, or, you know, play in bed a little bit before I go to sleep or something, you know, just to get a little time out of something, or a little progress in something like Warframe that's a little more grindy, or Monster Hunter. Games like this, though, I mean, Warframe doesn't have frame rate hitches like this game did, and Warframe's a much more graphically demanding game, and it is able to keep a smooth 30 frames for the most part. But even when the frame rate does dip, it doesn't eat inputs like this game did in that last boss. So it's crazy, and I'll take 30 frames over 60 frames. I'm okay with that. A good chunk of games I've played and enjoyed over my lifetime have been 30 frames. Like, especially some of the more graphically demanding games back on the Xbox 360. Yeah, I'm okay with 30 frames per second. I'm not one of those crazy graphics or frame rate heads. I just want it to be smooth. Give me a smooth 30 frames over a choppy 40 to 60 frames any day. That's definitely an objective shortcoming in the programming. But overall, despite my complaints... Oh, that's her name, Trip. Trip is available in story mode, available in time attack. Did I unlock Trip's story because I had all the emeralds? And I got that part where she turned sides and helped us by transforming using the emeralds? Holy smokes. So there's an entirely new story. Shame they didn't add any extra art there. This is the only menu that actually shows Trip there. So there's an entirely new storyline to play. Let's see here. Trip's story. Oh no. The only thing I see is someone saying that it's annoyingly hard. That's great. So, do I try to foray into that now, or do I save it for next time and just record my playthrough? That's probably what I'm gonna do. Probably just play Trip's story offline.